Hello and welcome to the Powerhouse Leaders Podcast. I'm your host, Stephana Johnson, and I have a very special guest with me today, Jonathan Wood Logan. He is a climate strategist and the co-founder of Extinction Rebellion America. We are privileged to have this powerhouse leader with us today, and I am super excited to get right to it. Jonathan, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, thank you. Great to be here.
Yay. So, wow, this is a huge topic and a lot happening. Extinction Rebellion America is like exploding all over the forefront of what's trying to be done with making major positive change, incredible impacts so fast, what I'm seeing going on with you at the helm. Wow. All right, so what I'd love to start with is if you can just give us a quick introduction, like a not quite a full bio, but definitely tell us who you are. Tell us a little bit more in detail of Extinction Rebellion America.
Sure. So, first I want to clarify something. I'm not actually at the helm. I'm just one of a core group of people that have come together to create Extinction Rebellion America. And we're all equal servants. I mean, that's what we are. We see ourselves as servants that are helping to bloom a beautiful movement in North America. So we're pretty excited about that. As far as a bio, I can just give you a snapshot. I was born in New York City, raised in New York. My mom was a doctor. My dad runs our family business still that's 130 years old. Moved to Texas in the 70s and came here to Oregon to go to law school. And since I was a kid, I grew up along the Hudson River, and we used to have what they call fish kills, which is when GE or some other big company would flood the river with toxins or some overflow, and it would just kill everything in the river. And so I got really interested in climate from a young age. Built my first thermal solar panel at 17 in high school in Texas. Worked for a solar company before Reagan killed the solar tax credits, and got an environmental studies degree in college, and just really wanted to make a difference in the world. And that evolved into going to law school for environmental law. And I came up to beautiful Portland, Oregon. I saw the mountains. I love to climb and hike and love the ocean. So I was like, I think I'll stay here. And so my entire life has had kind of that weaving thread of trying to make a difference, trying to have an impact, and kind of a sentinel awareness of climate as a huge issue, because we only get one planet and she takes care of everything we do. She is the only living planet we'll ever find probably in our lifetimes, and we got to take care of her. And we're not doing a good job of that right now. Right?
Yes. Wow. Yeah. Wow. I just have to tell you, it's so moving to hear you. Now, I know that you are a leader, and I know you the way you speak is in such it's so humbling, because I know you personally, and I also know that you are a powerhouse leader. But I want to clarify this. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're forcing your way. Right. You are a collaborator and a creator, and that's what I foster as, and really want to shift this thinking of how we lead.
Yeah.
And how we really make the impact that we're here to make, and how do we, you are leading a revolution. And there's a lot of backlash, and there's a lot of false information. There's so much going on. And for you to come at it at an angle of really embracing this, and the way you said this, you being a servant, that you're part of serving this, and you're part of this community and this group that's being created at a grassroots level that stewards this idea, as opposed to dictatorship and like, this is what's going to happen, and if it doesn't, we'll annihilate everything, which is, that's the other end of the spectrum. But we see that, and we see that that's not workable, and it's not workable definitely to make the kind of very immediate change that we have to make. So with that said, what would you say is your guiding motto, if it's different than what you just talked about? It's so clear, but I would love to go into a little bit deeper on the motto that drives you, and what keeps you going when you hit up against these concepts.
Yeah, my dual degree in college was actually history as well, and so I studied history extensively. And the history of humanity is one of exploring the planet and tribes, and growing out into empires and becoming countries and exploring. And we're kind of the planet. I forget who said it, but they said the planet's full. we've pretty much all got countries and boundaries and stuff like that. And now we've explored all the major resources, and we're at a place now where we're ready to birth the next vision of humanity, right? The next story, the great story, right? I mean, my great grandfather came over from Scotland with the story of the New World, right? Great grandfather, and the story of the New World and building a new life and everything else and starting a business, and that was amazing. And that story drove him to do incredible things. And so many millions of other people that came to America to do the same thing. And what we have now is we've gone from this, we keep evolving up to this awareness. It used to be tribes, and then it moves to bands and groups and clans, and then it becomes nations, and now we're a whole planet as a whole species. It's almost like I wish aliens would buzz the earth so we would recognize the beauty of humanity and all of us together, because we do have, my real point here is that we are one planet with one humanity and one common future, kind of like Star Trek world. And we get there together or we don't get there at all. Right? And so my perspective is that everything I do, it's not just the old Iroquois, I think it was the Iroquois nation, the 7 generations, we look for the impact on 7 generations, but also, like your boys, your beautiful, amazing boys that you're doing such an incredible job with, those boys have brothers and sisters in Kinshasa and Nairobi, in Lima and Santiago, in Shenzhen and Dubai and Delhi and every place else. And all these children are the future. And we in our age group have so much power and intellect and skills and resources, and we've been failing them on saving the planet. And now is our time to step up. I mean, it's emotional because this is it. Yeah. There's no time left. I've been studying climate for 40 years, and the scientists have been waving the red. It was the yellow flag. Now it's the red flag. Now it is the flaming red flag. It's like this is our time, and we have the resources and the intellect and the skills to make this change. And now it's our duty, our moral duty, to do so.
Wow. I mean, if that doesn't move us to want to do something, I don't know what does. And the passion and clearly the competency of the level of what you're speaking leads this change and makes people want to do something and drive this, because this is, I mean, this podcast is really about leaders and helping leaders become leaders. And it's clear you walk the talk and you really put that forth. And so without getting into the topic, I mean, there's no question I want to embrace this, and as a friend and as a colleague, we do that. So knowing that there is such a difficult, I mean, it's almost like we are at war in a way. It's a matter of life or death now.
Right.
I mean, this is the seriousness of it. So as someone who needs to also keep a sense of how do you translate this to, I don't want to say followers, but let's look at this. So you're setting the example as a leader. How do you translate that to not overwhelm the people that are hearing this to where they're stopped and stifled, that they feel like it's hopeless?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, one of the things, I'm kind of a geek. I'm kind of a wonky kind of guy, and I dive deep into the science. And actually, in the early 80s, I was measuring CO2 in the atmosphere. I mean, that's how far back I go. And we are all driven by a story, right? The manifest destiny of America, to cross the country and to unite the coasts. And we are driven by stories that give us meaning and purpose and help us make sense of the world. And what we really need now is a new story. It's the story of transforming from, like I said, fighting bands and tribes. We need a new story, and that story is how we communicate it. We need a story that talks about all of us. And just like your boys have grown and they go through developmental stages, our cultures and our society is doing the same thing. And I call it the Slinky Effect, right? There's always the people who want to progress forward and the people who hold to traditional values and the important things that got us here. And the history of humanity is doing this. We move forward in time. Nobody wants slavery today. Nobody thinks slavery is a good idea. Why? Because the entirety of humanity moved past that, right? And so in the same way, those in the forefront who understand climate are driven by a story of wholeness, are driven by a story of all of us. It's equality of opportunity, it's equality of understanding, and it's a bigger sense of who we are. We're bigger than our fights. I love every human being on all sides of all the political debates, all the racial divides, all the social justice things. The fact of the matter is all leadership is ultimately moral leadership. How do we know? Do you remember Tiananmen Square where the man stands out in front of the tanks that are going after the students with his briefcase in his hand, And he stands there, that moral leadership to stop an entire column of tanks. You know, in our world today, we revere people who stand up and lead from a moral core and a moral value set that is authentic and genuine. We may disagree with it or the story that they're telling, but we respect them. And all leaders ultimately compel respect from the inner core of who they are. Right?
Yes.
Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King, all of these greats that we revere in our society. You know, even Ronald Reagan, he had some people disagree with him, but everyone loved his moral core. John McCain, I know people that were vehemently against his politics, but said, man, I would follow him into battle. I believe and I trust in him as a human being because he had that moral core. And when we have that moral core and that clarity and that moral leadership, we can lead, and we can lead effectively and powerful, and people will follow that.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, that's it right there. You're right. Deep and profound. And so it seems obvious, but I'm going to have to ask the question.
Sure.
So how does one develop that?
Boy, that's a really important thing. You know, some people have spiritual traditions that lead them there. I mean, like, you know, I was raised Episcopalian, and for me, the Sermon on the Mount, the Beatitudes, these things are so deeply ingrained in me that even though I don't, you know, I'm kind of a high holy day kind of guy, you know, Easter, Christmas, I'll go, and I love the traditions, I love the incense, and, you know, and the fact of the matter is that we have many deep moral traditions, even deep humanist moral traditions of all kinds. It's not religious, it's an inner core, and we all have that, and we all know that. Everybody knows right from wrong. When it gets down to it, when you see something on the street that's wrong, you know it's wrong. When you see something that's right and good and whole, everybody, regardless of our politics, our race, creed, color, will stop at a car accident and help a girl who's been wounded at the car accident. We don't have to ask what that is.
So I hear you saying that, and you are clearly passionate about that, and you and I both agree with that. But the fact of the matter, not everyone does have that moral code, and you'd think everyone is born with that idea of right and wrong, but it's clear because there are major people who do not represent clearly the right and wrong.
Right.
And I think that, so what I want to say is, and I'm going to pull this out of you because I know you, I want to step away from the moral leadership, which I love, and I'm all for that, and I believe that, and that's underlying all of it. But the fact remains, there are many quote unquote successful leaders or people who are in impactful positions who are amoral, who are
Right.
not
Yes.
at all representing that from that place, but they are leaders and they are making major impacts. So with that, I just want to kind of pull this. I want to unpack this a little bit more. That's what I want to do.
Sure.
Because I know will share some major insight here. So can you just unpack this a little bit more with us, going deeper on this, and what if we didn't use the word moral leadership, or what if we used something else? What else could we use? I don't know that it's, because from one tribe, something that's moral for a tribe who of Quakers,
Right.
versus a tribe of cannibals.
Right.
Okay, right. Right. The morality difference there. So this is kind of important because it's a perspective thing.
Sure.
And clearly we have multiple perspectives, but you are making such impact in something that I think a lot, one, that I'm all for, right? So of course I want you to win, I want you to succeed, I want us to succeed, and I want us to take action, and I also want others to follow. And I want them to contribute to this idea and to this motion. But I think when we get into a moral framework, that starts creating
Absolutely.
a split.
Divisions,
Yeah.
judgments,
So
perspectives. Yeah.
let's unpack this a little bit and see. I want to get your, let's just unpack that. Over to you.
Yeah, I think it has to do with individuals. Well, let's put it this way. We've all seen the flock of. We've been and seen the Chapman at what was the Chapman School, the swallows, right?
Yes.
The Voswifts, and they have these massive 10,000 birds all in a flock. They've done research now, slow motion research. It takes 5 of those birds to make a shift, and the whole flock follows. So if you look at the moral values of all the different systems, they really all have things in common. It's how they apply them that's different, right? So the fact of the matter is, everybody wants clean water. I don't know any moral system or any value or any country that says we want toxins in the water for our children. We all want clean air. I don't know anyone who says I want my kids to breathe out of the back exhaust from a truck, right? We all want healthy food. No one I know says I want my food dripping with pesticides for my children, my little babies. We can agree on things, and we have to get to those things that we agree on, and we have to be willing to stand up, because let's face it, the bullies in the world, whether it's an idea bully or whether it's an actual bully or a dictator, the bullies do what they do until good people stand up. And what happens is we get courage from each other. We're tribal, right? We're primates. We have in our brain something called mirror neurons, but we all sense things. And if you get in a group of 100 people and 5 of us all look up like this, the rest will all go, what? And they'll look up. And so leadership is about taking action, which is why Extinction Rebellion is about getting our butts in the street, sitting down in nonviolent civil disobedience, like Martin Luther King, like Mahatma Gandhi. Man, it's like, this is what it takes. Because we all want to go about our lives. I don't want climate change to be real. I want to go out and keep making a couple $100,000 a year. I want to fly to Milan for a week and see art. I want to go to the Louvre. I want to fly all around the world and have fun and build a big, beautiful house. But we live in a different world than the ones we imagined and we were told when we were younger. The world has changed, and our perception and our stories need to catch up. And the dissonance we're seeing in society is the difference between the actuality of what's going on in the world and our clinging, like the back end of the Slinky, to the old ideas and the old perceptions, the old notions. And so it's incumbent on those of us who have the moral clarity or the intellectual clarity or the scientific clarity to stand up. And scientists are a bunch of geeks. They sit back and they read the measurements and they write reports and they go, we did it. But that's not what it takes. That's not what changes things. What it takes is people getting their butts in the streets, willing to be uncomfortable, willing to risk getting arrested, willing to lose their money. Look, the founders of our country, most of them lost all their property. Many lost their lives, but they signed the Constitution knowing they were signing their own death sentences because they were standing up for something they believed in. And they were all different people. But they said, we know something and we will take action. Because when you know something at a deep level, you have to take action with it. And that's what's happening in America. I talk to people every day, all over. I was on a call with some people in New Zealand and Australia last night about climate. I talked this morning to people from around the country, several independent calls, and everybody has a gut sense. We know something's wrong. We know politics is broken. We know that we're opposing each other, but we know we love each other. It's just so confusing. But the fact of the matter is, what makes clarity happen is action. You've been leading women and men for better health. When they get into the gym, it shifts the brain. And the fact of the matter is, we have to decide. It's like the monkey with the banana in the jar gets caught because he won't let go of the banana, right? Gets caught by the trappers because he won't let go of the banana. Could let go of it at any time. It's like Dorothy. You have the power all the time. Just click your heels. The fact of the matter is, when we get out and do something, it changes us internally. Talking about it, thinking about it, coffee clatching about it, posting online about it doesn't do it. What does it is getting out in the streets, being civilly, nonviolent, disobedient, kind, fun, make it a festival if you have to, finger painting with the kids, get the grandmas out there. If we do that, we change everything. And when we do that, it changes everything. And we have to be willing to let go of the banana of the stories we've been told about who we are and what's important. And that old lifestyle doesn't. We don't smoke anymore mostly. Only a few people smoke by comparison. We don't have horse and buggies. We let those go, except the Quakers. And so they're faster than the cannibals because they have the buggies. But the bottom line is, we've changed our story 1,000 times in humanity. We don't live in caves anymore. We don't make spears to live. We've made all these changes, and it's just that we're so good at patterns. We're so good at holding on to what we want. And sometimes what we hold on we want to isn't what we need. We need to let go. It's like the monkey bars. You got to let go of what's got you to where you are to get to where you want to go in the future. We can't build a modern multi-planet civilization if we don't take care of our own planet. We got to let go of the past. We got to let go of the diapers of our childhood and grow into adulthood and recognize that every human has an equal right to survive and fight for the planet.
Yeah, that's profound. So that's That's courageous leadership for sure. That's heroic leadership. And just listening to you and watching you, it's clear that it's about the heart, and it's heart-based, and it has nothing to do with the moral code so much as, well, of course it's there, but it really has to do with the courage to speak up, to step up, to hold a position that you believe in so strongly that you're willing to die for it. Hopefully we don't have to do that, but that is where we stand now at this time, and I see that. So, wow, thank you so much for being willing and vulnerable to share that, the depth of this heart-centered leadership that you bring to everything you do. Thank you for that. I wanted to ask you about any crucial, so looking at this whole concept with Extinction Rebellion America, I know what you're after, and we can definitely stay on that topic. But one of the questions that I like to ask leaders is, what's one of the crucial mistakes you made in your past that has led you that helps us kind of get an insight of what you learned and to understand this perspective that, we're not all born perfect all of a sudden, right?
If only.
Yeah.
That would make everything easy. That's a really great question. And I would have to say, not following my intuition. I call it sentinel thinking. I had a sense like, the meat rats, when one stands up and says, there's a hawk, and I had a sense back in the 70s, coming from where I came from, seeing what I saw, that if we kept doing what we were doing, we were going to run up against limits. We were going to run up against problems, that you just can't keep metaphorically pooping your diapers on the planet forever, and can't keep growing exponentially forever. We only have one planet of resources, and it's got to be here for generations to come. And so how we do something is, in a sense, how we do everything, right? And I had that sense, and not following my intuition to keep pushing on that. I don't want to say seduced, that's the wrong word, but it's enchanting to want to make money and have a life and get married and have kids. It's enchantingly beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. And I'm not saying we can't do that. I'm just saying that it's an easy thing to forget a calling or a passion. And my passion has always been about making the world a better place and about making a difference for everybody. And, my brothers and sisters in the evangelical church or the Muslim mosque or the Jewish temple or, humanists everywhere, we all want to have a good life. We all want to live beautifully. And I think, it's easy to follow that path, but sometimes there are those of us who are called at an early age to make a difference. And that's always been my calling. And I didn't follow it. And now it's that action piece. It's like, I can no longer hold the water back behind the dam of the illusion of things are going to be okay. Because they're not. And if you know that, in 9/11, it was, if you see something, say something. And I think the corollary for our time is, if you know something, do something.
Right.
Just do something. To every soccer mom out there, to every dad out there helping their kids, look, your kids are the most precious thing on the planet. And this is their planet. We don't own the planet. We inherit it, and then we have to pass it on. And what we're passing them on is a dumpster fire at this point. I mean, so I would say I didn't follow my intuition early enough, and it causes me to be willing to let go of everything and say, this is the one thing, this is the most important thing. It's like my mental and emotional and spiritual Pearl Harbor. It's like, this is it. I knew the Japanese Empire was expanding. I knew the Nazis were taking over Europe, but I was feeling isolationist in my own little vision of what I wanted to create in a good life. But then there comes a point in time when you're confronted with the Holocaust in Europe as a country, and you're confronted with the Nazis, and you're confronted with the Pearl Harbor, and you have to say, we can't just sit here on the sidelines anymore. We have to stand up and take action. And that's where we are. We got to put our butts in the streets, and that's my failing. I didn't do it early enough, and now I got to do it. Greta Thunberg stood up and just did it. A child said, it's on fire. Anybody? Should we put the fire out? And that's how I feel. And so I that would be my mistake in not doing enough early. So I don't feel guilty for that. I understand why. And now I'm just all in. And I want people to be all in too, because this is our time to make a difference for the kids.
So what can we do to make a difference? What can our listeners do to make a difference right now?
Well, I think understand there's a process, right? There's a process of going from not knowing anything to seeing something to rejecting it at first because it's so horrible. And the deeper you look, the more tragic and terrible and terrifying it can become. And knowing that it's going to feel bad. That's a normal process. Like, you're a public speaker, you're an amazing speaker. And the first time you spoke, you kind of maybe shake and you quake and you don't do a good job. But you realize that it's a process of unfolding and saying, we can take action. We can do this. We don't have to do a lot. Like Extinction Rebellion. We don't need everyone to get arrested. We just need enough. But it takes a village to put on a rebellion, right? We need people to come out there and take pictures. We need people to come out there and help the kids face paint. We need people to come out there and be a police liaison to let them know we're not here to be violent. We're just going to sit down and protest. And yes, you can arrest us, and we're going to be good and kind, and we're going to do all these things. We need people to come out and serve Kool-Aid or food or water, to bring fruit for the kids. It takes a village. It takes about 20 people for every one person arrested. And people can give us 5 hours a week. They can give us 10, but everybody can do different things.
So what is it that you're leading with Extinction Rebellion, America, specifically? A rebellion, then?
It is a rebellion. I have a philosophy background as well. And, if you look at Locke and Hobbes, we have a social contract. And it says we give government the power, and we could all argue about how much, but we give government the power to protect us, right? Whether it's from the Nazis or the Japanese Empire in Pearl Harbor, we give them the power to protect us, and therefore we follow the rules that we're given. But when we have an existential crisis that's going to cause crop failures, it's going to cause all these terrible things, and the government's saying it's not real, we don't want to talk about it, and our current government is shutting down climate policy and climate information, pulling out of the accords and not even going to the events and deleting data, the fact of the matter is that's called denial. And when our government is in denial, like we were before Pearl Harbor, it's up to the people. We're not going to get a Pearl Harbor. We're the frog in the frying pan going slowly. It's up to the people to rebel and say, enough. You must treat this like an emergency. We must mobilize and transform our society while we still have time. It's up to the government. It has the power. It has the laws. It has the might of the military. It has everything that we've given it because we, the people, have given the government this power. And the government is failing to address it. And so we must rebel. Not to overthrow the government, no, but to get their attention. Sometimes you got to shake and hit the pots and pans to wake people up and ring the alarm bell to get their attention. So the point of Extinction Rebellion is to rebel to the point to get the government to pay attention, to declare a climate emergency, number one, to take action as if it's a Pearl Harbor emergency because it is. And then third, to work with the people in a highly democratic process called sortition. That's a technical term for randomness, like a jury selection, so that we all are engaged and working with government to hold government accountable. Because government isn't always accountable. Both sides can agree. It's like, so we need to hold government accountable to do what's necessary to take action on this emergency, and then to take our role as America, as a world leader, to stand up again and shoulder this effort to help the world make the change too. Because people in some countries have no money. They can't put up solar panels. They're burning down forests for charcoal and food. We have to once again take the American ingenuity, the American brilliance, all our leadership, and get out in the world and make a difference. It's time to stand up again. And we can't slink down like we did before World War II. We have to stand up. And we fought 2 transoceanic wars in 4 years and defeated 2 empires that were massing across the earth. We the people. So it's emotional because we have very little time. The window closes soon. And I know there are people who argue about that, but the scientists don't argue. The scientists are in panic.
I completely appreciate you on that. I wanted to talk about, there's a concept of Kaizen. Have you ever heard of the Kaizen way?
Constant improvement, Deming, Japan.
Yes, and it's not just constant improvement. It's small steps.
Yes.
Because in the amygdala, and this is something I speak a lot on, that if we overwhelm the public or anyone, if I tell someone, I need you to do, or what is it you're going to do to make a planet-wide change, when their reality is that they can't even see in front of their own faces, right? Right now they're just they're scrolling through this, and that's what their reality is.
Right.
And then we create this emergency Like,
Yes.
well, I'll just say with the coronavirus, right now we've got this, and all of a sudden people are in panic mode. There's reactionary instead of creation, creating and what you're talking about as far as Americans are innovators, or, it's planet-wide. Let's just go planet-wide. We don't have to call it Americans anymore. Planet-wide, human species are innovators.
Amazing.
They are amazing innovators. They explorers, as you said, they are adventurers, and they are willing to do what it takes. No question about it. We've gotten frog in the pot. We've seen that. But if we look at taking one small step, one small doable change,
yes,
then another one, then another one, then another one, and building on that instead of this, like, there's no way I'm going to go out and tie myself to a tree. Would I have done that 15 years ago before my children were born? Yes.
Yes.
But I want to know, so I wanted to bring that up, but we're running out of time, and I want to get your book. What's your favorite book that you would absolutely, like, the number one recommended book that you would say for people to read?
Right now, as you can see, I've got a big library here. I've got a library downstairs. This is the book that I actually gave out at Christmas time to friends and family. This is the book that I would have everyone read. It's by Roger Hallam, Hallam. It's called Common Sense for the 21st Century. Only a nonviolent rebellion can now stop climate breakdown and social collapse. I don't have my reading glasses on. And it's available at Powell's in Portland. It's available in bookstores all over. It's available online from, I think, Chelsea.
We'll make sure we get a link on that for them. Okay, great. So that's the number one book.
Yes, because it's really talking about what we need to do. We just need to do two things.
Okay.
Sit our butts down in the street and support people who are willing to get arrested for nonviolent civil disobedience like Martin Luther King. And if we get enough people doing that, it's a tipping point. And that's the tipping point we're looking for. It's about that.
Tipping point to do what? To get the government to call a state of emergency?
Yeah.
And then what? And then what? What do we want to do? So when I was growing up, I remember seeing Earth Days and what we would do and celebrate on Earth Day. We use mugs instead of cups that are
right.
Yes, we use no more plastic, no straws. Walking or biking instead of,
right.
For me, those are the changes that I know I can make. But
right.
is that too little, too late? Where is it that we now are in this situation of emergency where that the government's not doing what they're doing as far as what do they need to, what does the government need to be doing? Because declaring a state of emergency is not going to fix the problem.
Right. Right. So this is a great question.
What is?
This is a great question because what you're asking is very essential. So there's two things. One is it has to come from the bottom up, and then it's going to come from the top down, right? So if you look at World War II, we did two things. People collected, tin, and they had food rationing, and they did those things. I'm not saying we have to ration. Please don't mistake me. What I'm saying is we have to do our individual part, right?
I would say tear up the frickin' grass and build a garden. That's what we did in Austin.
Right.
90% of our stuff was grown in my front yard instead of spraying weed killer and making, and then having to water grass.
There's 10,000 things. There's 10,000 things that we, the people, need to do. But none of that makes a difference if we don't stop drilling oil and burning coal, right? At the end of the day, the government has to step in like it did in World War II and command and make boundaries around what we can and can't do. We have to get off coal. We have to get off oil. We need a revenue neutral carbon tax, which means the money comes all back to the public, not to the government. And that just increases the ability for people to move to transition into renewable resources. We need the government to set boundaries about what we can and can't do and set goals for renewable resources and to fund it. And then to make us do the things that people won't do otherwise. Look at car seats. Look at smoking in restaurants. Look at smoking in airplanes. Look at all the things the government made us stop doing. And then we make our own personal choices as well. No one's going to tell you what you have to eat. You make a personal choice. But it's real smart to go organic. And we know from the China study and others that the healthier you eat and the more you exercise, the better you feel, the more energy you have, and the longer you live, and the less healthcare you need, right? So the bottom line is we have to do both. It's a yes and moment. But
now you're talking because now you gave us specific things, and now I get it. Because the fact of the matter is there is too much complacency in the government and too much of ignoring and denial and all of that, and it's got to stop because it's then that whole mentality is leading an entire culture of thinking, oh, that's all BS. We can go and drive and do what we need to do and get siphon oil and all of that. And so I'm getting you now. Okay.
Yep. It has to be both.
Yeah, it's got to be both.
It starts with this. We've got to be willing to sit down in the street and to pay attention, because look, 40 years I've done the petitions, I've done the marches, I've done online stuff, I've done call centers for green organizations, I've done all of it. And guess what? The world is burning. It's getting worse.
Bottom line, we have to be willing to pay the price. We have to be willing to get out from behind our computers, off our phones, and go out in the street and take action. Now I get you. And what?
Yeah. And have fun doing it. This isn't a somber thing.
Yeah.
We need to rebel. Seriously. We need to rebel in joy. This is not about anger. This is about love. This is about love, kindness, compassion, and creating a future that our children deserve.
And also calm. I think also calm, because it can't be like, oh yeah, let's go party and let's serve Kool-Aid. No, you know better than that.
I do.
No Kool-Aid, no artificial, right? But it's also that we have to be in that calm space, and I think that is what you bring to any organization, any group that I've ever seen, because I've seen you speak numerous times and do what you do, is because you come from a peak performance background and leading leaders. And in that, you do it in a very calm, centered, whole way. And I think that's tremendous. I haven't actually seen this piece of you, this such vulnerable piece, and I can, we haven't talked for a while, but I can tell that you've have so immersed yourself in this, because I know you're passionate about it, and that this is, and that it's serious.
Yeah.
That it's serious. It's not just, oh, that's nice, I'm glad Jonathan's doing that. It's like, oh my goodness, this is it. This is it. We have to, this is serious, and it's drop everything and put out the fires now. Yeah. And I get that now. So while I also want to keep this of, okay, this is a podcast for Powerhouse leaders, and it's kind of cool, and we're just like, yeah, but okay, Powerhouse leaders are now going to go out and we have to stand up for whatever we're in. We have to, as Powerhouse leaders, hold our position within ourselves of knowing that strength of what is moral, what is right. And being able to hold those accountable that need to be held accountable, but also holding ourselves accountable day in, day out. And then using this idea around the strategy that you guys are creating with xramerica.org. I want to make sure we get that link in there for everyone. And then making this shift to understand that it's not us against them. It's all of us working together to save this planet and to create something that our children will be safe and healthy and all of that. So in closing, we'll just wrap this up. I'll give you back your day. In closing, what else would you like to share with us? And then let's make sure I get the exact information for where people can find out more right now.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. So, and I'll give you a couple of links. There's three things that people can do. Number one is get curious. Get curious and interested in learning more, because the closer you look, the more you'll understand, and it will be self-fulfilling for you in terms of understanding what to do next. Because once you know, then you take action, right? So if you know something, do something. And there's a lot of ways people can take action. Extinction Rebellion America is not the only place to do that, but I think it's the key place. It is the leverage point, the tipping point, because in the social movement history, it's what makes things happen all across time. So the second thing is that come to our website, xramerica.org, take a look. The closer you look at us, the more I think you'll agree with what we're saying. And then watch, I'll give you the link that you can put below on the podcast, a Heading for Extinction talk by a woman named Professor Jeffery. Super bright, very easy to understand, very clear. She does a tremendous presentation. It's an online YouTube video. You can link to it. And just watch that. It's the best way to educate yourself right now about what the facts are. Because look, once we start with the facts, we know what to do. And the third thing is, look, if you really want to get involved, we have a number of ways to do that with Extinction Rebellion America. We have our website up. There's a place where you can learn more and add some information. We'll send you some information. There's a place where you can say, I want to join and do something. I'm not sure what, but here's a couple of things I'd like to do, and we list those out for you. And then when get in where you fit in, and come have fun making a difference, saving the planet. I mean, it's just that easy.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what I will say, for those of you that are listening to this podcast, you can't probably see the amount of energy and velocity of leadership that just exudes from the individual that we're watching here, Jonathan. But you probably have heard it come through, and those that are watching, you can observe what it means to be a leader. And it doesn't mean that, it doesn't necessarily have to have titles or all of that. We have to lead right where we are, and we can become powerhouse leaders and lead ourselves, lead our families, lead our communities, lead a country, lead a business. It doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is you have to step up and lead and hold that. And you've set that example today in such a profound way, and I'm grateful. So I'll wrap this up. We've gone over, and I appreciate you staying longer for me. Thank you so much, and I wish you peace and blessings, and I'm right there with you.
Thanks. All right, we'll talk soon.
Big hug to you.
Big hug. See you.
Bye.